Picture a resource. Every human on Earth had it. Free, no limits, no subscription. It never ran out. Then, in about 15 years, we nearly destroyed it. Not by accident. Engineers and psychologists did it, on purpose. That resource is boredom. This might be one of the most underrated losses in human history. We didn't notice it, because it doesn't look like a loss. It looks like convenience. By the end of this video, you might see boredom differently, and you might try something odd for our time. Let yourself get bored on purpose. But first, let's figure out what boredom actually is, and whether it deserves to be feared at all. Boredom isn't a malfunction. It's not wasted time. It's a specific state. It has a function, like sleep, like hunger. When your brain has nothing to focus on, it switches modes. Researchers call it the default mode network. It's not off, it's active. It just points inward instead of at the outside world. This mode does important work. It connects ideas that weren't connected before. It runs simulations about the future. It imagines things that aren't in front of you right now. It reflects on you, on who you are, what you feel, what you want. And it switches on in one situation, when there's no outside stimulation. Not while you're reading a book, not while you're watching something. Just sitting in quiet, with nothing external to occupy the brain. That's how people lived for most of human history. Not because they were lazy, because the world couldn't give them constant input. No endless text to scroll, no feed. Just sky, fire, and a lot of free time. Here's a concrete example. In the middle of the 20th century, anthropologist Marshall Solins studied the sand people of the Kalahari Desert. They're one of the few groups on Earth whose way of life still resembles how humans lived tens of thousands of years ago. He found they worked, on average, 15 to 20 hours a week, not a day. A week. The rest was rest, conversation, doing nothing in particular. He called them the original affluent society. Not because they had a lot of stuff, because they had a lot of time. The human brain was built for exactly those conditions. We're wired to work in the pauses, not just in action. So what did people do in those pauses? Look at any era before constant entertainment. The pattern repeats. People with free time didn't sit still. They started making things. Take jewelry. Archaeologists have found drilled shells coated in red ochre, tens of thousands of years old. Not tools, not weapons, not food. Beads. Someone spent a whole day drilling a shell with a stone tool. No electricity, no metal, because the alternative was staring at a cave wall. Take music. Archaeologists have found flutes made from bird bones, tens of thousands of years old, with finger holes drilled through them. This was long before farming, long before cities. Someone sat down with a bird bone and a free evening and invented music, not because it was needed, because it was boring not to. Take philosophy. It came from boredom, literally. People with spare time started asking questions with no practical use. What is time? Does justice exist on its own? Does the world have a beginning? Take myth and religion. They didn't show up as a reaction to danger. A hungry person running from a predator doesn't write a creation myth. Someone by a fire on a quiet night does. Once the danger's gone, but the questions remain. What's beyond the horizon? What happens after death? Why do the stars move the way they do? Take science. It started with boredom too. Someone watched the same thing for a long time. The stars, animal behavior, the change of seasons, because there was nothing else to do. And eventually noticed a pattern nobody had seen before. Take conversation. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, the same researcher who found that human social groups naturally cap around 150 people, studied what people talk about when they're not talking about anything important. His finding, roughly 65% of all human conversation is ordinary gossip. Who did what? Who said what? That sounds like a waste of time, but Dunbar argues this is where language itself came from. Before language, primates bonded through grooming, cleaning each other's fur. But grooming takes one-on-one time. Language let you do the same thing with a whole group around a fire at once. Boredom and spare time produced small talk, and small talk produced society. Notice the pattern. The result: a bead, a flute, a philosophy, a myth, a piece of science, a conversation by the fire wasn't the goal. Getting through the empty moment was the goal. The result was a byproduct. Boredom worked because it had no competition. The only alternative to a quiet evening was another quiet evening. The brain had nowhere else to go, so it started working on itself. That's exactly what disappeared over the last 15 years. Humans never had access to an endless stream of content, tailored perfectly to their interests, until recently. The phone in your pocket isn't just a useful tool. It's the first device built so that no second of boredom goes unfilled. An endless feed, an algorithm that knows you better than you know yourself. It serves the next clip a fraction of a second before you'd have gotten bored. Don't confuse this with old entertainment. A book ends, a movie ends. After either one, you go back to silence. Whether you want to or not, the feed never ends. That's not an accident. That's the whole point. Here's the uncomfortable conclusion. We didn't become more entertained. We became people with no time left for the state where the brain makes something new. One more detail. Boredom used to live in more than just quiet evenings at home. It lived in lines, elevators, the 30 seconds it takes a kettle to boil. Those small pauses mattered a lot. They happened on their own, many times a day. They trained the brain more than a rare free evening ever did. Those pauses went first. It's easier to remove 30 seconds of waiting than a whole evening, and easier to fill it with one swipe of a thumb. Take a simple example. Standing in a checkout line. People used to just stand there and think, look around, notice people, replay a memory, plan the evening. Now almost everyone in that line is looking at a phone. 1 minute a day, multiplied across years, adds up to thousands of hours of quiet thinking that simply disappeared from people's lives. Here's what happens when boredom disappears. People who almost never spend time alone with silence show the same signs, according to researchers who study attention. They can't hold a long thought as well. They struggle to sit and reflect calmly. And anxiety rises exactly when stimulation disappears. Not from a hard task, just from the absence of a signal. That's ironic. Boredom used to be normal. It didn't scare anyone. Now even bumping into it by accident, phone dead, phone left at home, feels uncomfortable. We're not just bored less often, we've lost the ability to sit with it. There's a study by psychologist Sandy Mann worth mentioning. She gave people the most boring task she could design, copying numbers out of a phone book, and then tested their creativity right after. The bored group scored noticeably higher than everyone else, because boredom forces the brain to generate its own stimulation, and a brain left to itself turns out to be surprisingly inventive. There's a bigger question too. What happens to a generation that never had a real empty pause growing up? Every weight got closed off by a screen from day one. That means this generation is growing up without access to the state that gave us philosophy, art, science, and just the ability to sit with your own thoughts. The problem isn't less boredom. The problem is boredom became unreachable. There's always a device in your pocket ready to shut it off the moment it starts. Here's the irony. You're probably watching this during exactly one of those moments. Between tasks, in a line, before bed. One of the pauses that used to belong to your own head. Now, it belongs to a screen. That's not your fault. This is a system. Smart people built it this way on purpose. It's hard to resist alone. But there's one experiment worth trying, at least once. Next time your hand reaches for your phone out of boredom, in line, in an elevator, during those 30 seconds while the kettle boils, stop a second earlier, leave the pause empty. Let yourself actually get bored. It'll feel strange, maybe a little uncomfortable. You've spent years training your brain never to sit with it. But that empty space is where everything we call the human mind came from. The first bead, the first flute, the first questions about the world, the first stories by a fire, the first patterns, noticed through patient watching. Boredom isn't a flaw, it's one of the best tools we have. And you still have a chance not to lose it.